struts like John Wayne, resembles Jim Carrey, and dresses like he's visually impaired. Because he is. Insight with Mark Farrell on the Progressive Radio Network.
All right. Thursday, New York City. 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Mark Farrell with you. Thursday, New York City. How the heck are you? It is so good to be back. Kind of a solemn day yesterday in New York City, understandably, and in other parts of the country, and certainly worldwide as well, because 9/11 touched the lives of millions across borders, across continents, and more. And I was reminded about a great story experience I had the pleasure of living, and in this particular case, meeting an individual. He was the window washer on One World Trade Center, and he was a phenomenal individual. His name was Rocco, immigrant from Italy, and the radio station I was working for at the time, their transmitter was in that building on 109th floor. The roof is 110th. It's actually on top of 110th. And so I'd go with my chief engineer, Andy Bader, sometimes to the room, to the transmitter site, to do odds and ends, and also we used to broadcast in between the two buildings, World Trade Center, and a thing called Jazz Wednesdays. Every Wednesday for, I think 10 years in July and August, we had Jazz Wednesdays, live concerts right in the middle of both buildings on the plaza of the World Trade Center that attracted thousands upon thousands. They were so popular that people used to schedule their vacations around what acts would be there so they didn't miss a thing, or sometimes they'd even come into the city on their vacation to see a show. Anyway, so needless to say, I was up at the transmitter room a lot. There was actually two gentlemen. One gentleman worked actually the transmitter room, and he was just phenomenal. He was a genius in his own right, and I was very, very proud to have met him, and he perished that day. And the day that I met the window washer, Rocco, was, I'd say it's probably about 1997, 1996. And we're on the roof. And it was the first thing that was just kind of, I was awestruck about was how it kind of resembled a graveyard. Now you're like, how could that have possibly resemble a graveyard? Because when I opened the door, all the antennas, now you have your master antenna that goes, I'm not sure how high it went up, maybe 80 feet, 60 to 80 feet. But then you have all these little antennas that are like 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet high. And those are all repeaters. And those are for all the taxi cab companies, two-way radios, you name it. Real estate in a high rise in a building such as the World Trade Center and or Freedom Tower is prime real estate for so many different reasons. And for signals, TV signals, radio signals, you name it, UHS, VHF, forget it. Used to be Paramount, but not so much nowadays. But anyway, so there were all these antennas sticking up, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Then I remember walking to the side of the building and looking over, kind of being a little, daunted. And I look over, and I'm like, what is that? And it was a helicopter way down. I'm like, even a helicopter looks small at this height. And then I had the pleasure of meeting Rocco. My engineer, Randy, said, hey, Mark, here's Rocco. Nice to meet you, Rocco. And he's very, very affable and friendly. And I was just taken by this guy's craft, his skill, and how it seemed like I was meeting him on the sidewalk, 110 stories down. He was so, hey, how are you? Matter of fact, and casual and carefree. He loved being up that high. And as a matter of fact, the way the system window washer unit was devised is, imagine a rectangle. And within the rectangle of this building, on inside of this building, about 5 feet radius all the way around was a track that was below, I'd say about maybe 2 feet or 3 feet below the actual roof surface. So it actually rode around and then had an arm that protruded outside over the edge of the Trade Center. And that's where the window washer unit would go down. It would go down all the way and then come all the way back up. So Rocco said, hey, do you want to step out onto the unit? And I was kind of like, okay, yeah, all right, I'll check it out. I'm not afraid of heights. You can't get me on a ride. You can't put me on a Ferris wheel or lightning loops or roller coasters. But I'll step out outside onto a window washing unit. 111th floor is up. And I looked down. That's when I saw the helicopter. And then I just saw everything that just looked so small. I mean, it's just crazy how high you are. And then he said to me, hey, do you want to go down? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I can send you down. I was like, no, thank you. Nope, that's it. That's okay. Nope, don't want to go down. And I stepped off the window washing unit. But that time is etched in my memory because many things stood out. Because, number one, I never had seen a view from that vantage point, and also unprotected. Here I am. There's nothing over my head. No wires, no cables, no bars, no glass, nothing. So you're hearing just the wind like whoo, and then see a helicopter so far below me, I don't know, 200 feet below me. That's a huge difference when you're 111 floors high. And then just the overall scenery to see all the different bridges on the west side of New York and then looking south down the Hudson was phenomenal. And to see Bayonne, Staten Island, and it was a really clear day. I could start seeing the Jersey Shore, the point of the Jersey Shore, the north aspect of it. So it was etched in my memory for many, many different reasons. And yesterday, I'm not a person on 9/11 to watch TV in terms of, by all means, the footage that's displayed of what took place on the day of 9/11. I don't have any real reason to watch that, because I think it's just so raw for me. I find it very upsetting. I find it so many different things not comfortable. I worked at a radio station that was about 20 blocks north of there. I lived that smell. I lived that unsettledness. I lived so many of those aspects for so much time, months. And having to go or watch any videos of people running completely covered in dust and soot and smoke and the buildings collapsing, it just brings back so much memories of where I was watching the TV, looking at the street, actually waiting for my friend who worked in the Trade Center. And as a matter of fact, I went to St. Vincent's Hospital, which is unfortunately a hospital that was closed several years ago, that was local in the West Village, to say, I'm going to go give blood. I'm going to go give blood. And I went down to the hospital and waited in line. And there's so many people. And they're like, you know what? It's going to take hours. Can you come back later? I said, sure. So I was just walking around thinking, all right. Well, before I left, I told the secretary, I said, listen, if someone comes to the building named Harry, he's a dear friend of mine, just let him wait in the studio. Because obviously his office is in disrepair. This is actually before both buildings fell and collapsed. And we didn't know the full extent of it. So there I was, and then I actually started calling in from the street and did live reports on 2 New York City stations, CD 101.9 and Hot 97. Actually 3, KISS FM. And gave live testimony and witness accounts of what was taking place on the streets, the pandemonium, the confusion, the uncertainty. And it was a very, very scary, unsettling day, and we had no idea, certainly to the extent of what was happening all over the country, what was trying to happen, and actually what was stopped in Pennsylvania. But going back to the initial point of the story about in terms of the footage, not one really to watch, because I think it's a great commencement and or way to reflect and commemorate the lives when they do the readings of the names. I think that's fantastic. I love that. But for me personally, I don't need to watch footage of, by all means, I don't think many or any stations, and I could be wrong about this, show footage of actually people leaping off the building. I know there's one, something I saw on Facebook where they're showing the picture of the gentleman who's actually airborne upside down, and the caption said, "Have you forgotten?" And, I just don't think you can use something like that to remind people about the significance of that day, or how maybe they're possibly too involved and concerned about their own life. I think, imagine the family members of the person who is in midair. How would you feel about that? So I think that's very grotesque and really, really insensitive. But that's one more reason why I don't need to watch the events of that day. Is it an important day? Absolutely. Do we need to commemorate it? Absolutely, on every single level. As a matter of fact, I believe the Mets were supposed to, they wanted to wear first responder hats last night, and MLB shut them down. And I don't know all the back end story of it, but I don't know why would they do that. That sounds kind of preposterous. But I believe one of the players proposed that they wear a certain type of cleat, and I didn't see the game, but I believe, maybe Jesse, maybe you can chime in if you know this, that they did wear special cleats, the Mets, yesterday, that were designed. Cleats. What was the design of them? Did they say anything, 9/11, never forget, or something like that?
Yeah, it was along the lines of that. And MLB ruled that they weren't going to fine the Mets for wearing the cleats.
And MLB graciously said they would not fine the Mets for wearing the cleats. Well, how generous of them. How very compassionate of them. I mean, this is, two New York teams. The Yankees, I believe, were in the World Series that year, correct, Jesse? In 2001?
Yes.
I don't think they won.
They lost the Diamondbacks.
Exactly. They did lose to the Diamondbacks, but they were in it. And I mean, it was so emotional. People who didn't even care about baseball were watching it because it wasn't even about baseball. It was about camaraderie, everybody coming together. And that was kind of the beauty. And I still like to think New Yorkers always will have that. But in terms of the ripple effect, like the circles, concentric circles that were going larger outside the pool of New York City and the 5 boroughs, and more encompassing of the tri-state, all the people who came into the city on a daily or semi-daily, weekly, monthly basis. I remember a friend of mine who commutes, a painstaking commute from almost upstate New York, told me that one thing happened on a train. He was telling me all these great things. Like it was almost like a do a great deed type of thing. And then one thing happened like a couple months later after 9/11. And someone stood up and turned around and said to the person, whoever was creating a commotion or not being amenable or polite or respectful of another commuter, and said, "I guess the days of being polite after 9/11 are far beyond us right now," or something to that effect. And I was just like, wow, yeah, it kind of encapsulated the whole statement of taking care of each other, looking out for each other. And, people are on eggshells, I should say, walking on eggshells because of after that. I mean, it was just an unsettling time. I remember for the first 2 or 3 days, I stayed at the radio station in the West Village right here in New York City, didn't go home. I was doing air shifts galore. And it was a very, very tiring time, physically exhausting, but mentally exhausting because you just couldn't still wrap your head around it. It was inconceivable to think of what took place. And here we are. Everything was pretty much on lockdown. It was a no-fly zone countrywide, the first time in American history that everything was grounded except for military planes. I mean, that just speaks volumes. And I remember going outside. I'd go outside a lot to get some food and air and be kind of as eerily because, at nighttime, all the streets were closed and there was no traffic south, I believe, of maybe 23rd Street for the first few days, and it went a little bit further south of that. But how quiet it was. But the smell permeated the air everywhere. And I remember frequently going out and getting breakfast and lunch and then bringing a cup of coffee or two because there would be officers like incredibly present, just ubiquitous, blanketing the city. And if there was a guy on the corner, I'd get him a cup of coffee and handing it to him. And I remember just looking at the officers every time I'd hand them something. They just had this like confused, doubtful, incredulous look on their face. Like, should they trust me? Or are they just completely physically and mentally wiped out as well? It just was very, very confusing time. I do remember the first night, second night, actually, when I was still in the city, trying to go to my friend's apartment to go take a shower. And I was walking north, and I remember a guy, he and I were crossing the street at the same time. It wasn't a major avenue, but he was jogging very lightly. We were walking next together. He picked up and went into a jog. And then a car came by, and the car was, going in its lawful lane, but the pedestrian ran out in front of him, and he got clipped. And I'm like, oh my God, how many other things are going to go wrong here? And the guy just kind of rolled to the ground and kind of like looked dazed. And I came up to him like, hey. And he starts to get up. I'm like, hey, buddy, stay down. It's cool. Just slow down. Let's check you out. And he looked at me, I got to go. So it's just, who knows if there was something more to it? Who knows if he just robbed somebody? He looked like an upstanding citizen. But the point is, it seemed like everybody was completely numb. And there's so many different events that I experienced to that caliber that were just kind of part and parcel, I guess, for the tumultuous events and catastrophic events that took place that day. You're going to meet an individual named Griffin Pinkow in a few minutes. He has RP, and he created an incredible organization called For the Foreseeable Future Foundation. Foreseeable Future Foundation. And we're going to learn about his incredible resilience, his insight to create a platform for other individuals, youth specifically, who are blind or visually impaired to have an outlet of sports. And that is just incredible because I remember for myself and so many blind and visually impaired young children and youth just don't have a lot of options. So we're going to meet Griffin in just a few minutes. He's a great guy, and he's actually an established cyclist as well, and we're going to talk about that because as a cyclist myself, and I've never met Griffin, I really look forward to hearing his experience on the saddle and riding. 23 minutes after the hour of 11 in New York City. Mark Farrell with you. Another hot one today. I guess the Indian summer continues. It was 90 yesterday. It's going to be a high of 80 today. And just wanted to share with you that it's so funny how in the world in the tri-state area and a lot of the East Coast seaboard, for our listeners that are, excuse me, mid country or on the West Coast or abroad, who live their summers in a different way. Basically, once Labor Day comes around here, summer kind of gets packed up. And it's very interesting because the vibe in New Jersey, which is certainly just south of New York City, completely changes. It becomes a local summer. That's what they call September, the local summer. And it's very, very cool because, there's less crowds. And there's, I guess, just more opportunity. It's just more relaxed. And when you get weather like this, that, continues mid-September to the near or end of September, it's just that much more rewarding and satisfying and allows you to do a lot of the stuff that I wasn't able to do or you weren't able to do throughout your summer. As a matter of fact, this weekend I'm going to pick up some paddle boards and do that and some kayaking with my kids and wife. So I'm looking forward to do that. So hopefully wherever you live, if you're into the warmer months, that is, that you have an opportunity to take part in the warmer season that we know as Indian summer here. Progressive Radio Network. My name is Mark Farrell. The show's Insight. Love your feedback. Mark at markfarrellmotivation.com. Mark at markfarrellmotivation.com. Griffin Pinkow is an individual who is undaunted by changes, undaunted by people saying no to giving him what he possibly may need to create his foundation, undaunted to get on a track, a bank track, and ride a bicycle 20, 30 miles an hour. My pleasure to welcome Griffin Pinkow to the show. Hello, Griffin. How are you?
Hey, Mark. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to bring that mic a little closer to you.
Sure.
All right, slide up.
Yep. There we go.
There we go.
We're good.
Great to meet you, my friend.
Nice to meet you too, Mark. Thanks
And
for having me.
who is your buddy next to you?
Yeah, you could probably hear him once in a while, but his name's Lester. I just got him from the Seeing Eye in New Jersey, so it was a big step. And yeah, we're a good team, and we're making it work.
Lester, you're very lucky to be teamed up with Griffin. Seeing Eye in New Jersey, incredibly internationally known organization.
Yes, it's in a great group, just great team. Everything about it was incredible, and patient with me and Lester, and really making sure that we got all we needed out of it. And Lester and I have two speeds. We have fast and faster. So I don't know how that goes for the city, but we make it work.
New Yorkers at heart, fast and faster.
Exactly.
I see you next time. You're going to have a third gear. It's going to be fastest. So now, 12 years of age.
Yes.
You were a fun kid, loving life, lots of zeal. Then you started to realize that your vision is not exactly the way it used to be.
Yes.
How did you notice that?
We actually, when I was younger, we'd go trick-or-treating with friends, and I would say I can't really see that well, or, there was something going on, and just thought because I wasn't really out at night. And then a few years go by, and we're in California. I actually was able to make a travel baseball team out there. I excelled at baseball, and I couldn't see the ball come off the bat one day, and I'd be running one way, and the ball would be another way in the sky. After a couple days of practice and a game or two where it wasn't the safest place for me to be, my parents and friends and coaches thought I needed glasses. So I decided to go back to the doctor, and they say, "All right, this is your vision. Here are some glasses. Go ahead and see if it works." The next day of our game was at night, and with retinitis pigmentosa, if you know anything about it, you mostly go off of contrast when you still have some vision. So it was a white ball with a black sky at night, and I could see the ball. I was doing really well, and we went on with the game. The next day at practice, I couldn't see again. So that kind of was how we found out something was up and wrong. And then the next step was, can we pinpoint what it is, and how can we do that? So after doctors all over the country, I finally went back to my ophthalmologist in Princeton, where I'm originally from, and she said, "I think I see some pigment on the retina." Well, what does that mean? We didn't really know, and then a few months later, the doctor came back and said, "You have retinitis pigmentosa." So I guess, Mark, that's kind of where the journey started, was figuring out, there was an issue, and what the issue was and is, and how can we figure out what this issue is and kind of take it from there.
And I imagine a diagnosis at that young age just results in confusion.
You know what? It's funny, Mark. Yes and no, but I don't want to say that it was just fine and I was good and I kept moving. But it didn't really affect me in the way of, why me, sorry me. It was a little confusing because, well, what's RP? What does this mean? So the unknown, I guess, was a little strange, but it was kind of like, okay, well, this is it. What's going to happen later on? It's progressive. What does that mean? So more questions and curiosity, definitely, but it was kind of, we'll just keep moving. And, when I start to lose more vision or whatever the case may be, we'll take that on when it comes. So at the beginning, it was more of the unknown and kind of confused of, what does RP mean? What does, vision loss mean? I don't want a cane. I don't want a dog. All these sorts of things that you kind of go back into your head when you sit down and say you have retinitis pigmentosa or any disease by that case.
I think there's an advantage. Of course, it's easy to simplify it to this degree, but there is an advantage when you have an onset of a illness.
Yes.
Or diagnosis when you're young, because you don't know any better.
That's
to a full
true.
extent. You're so full of life and energy, and you're not so cemented in your ways and aren't daunted. It wasn't like you were going to college the next day or starting a new career or worried about what Facebook was going to think of you.
Of course.
Not all those variables are big concerns and impact a lot of people's lives, but I'm not minimizing being diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, commonly known as RP, which is pretty prevalent in our society.
It is, Mark, and I think simplifying it, yes, but and one thing that I found, which is it helps, with anything, if you start young and you can kind of take it from that stage, of course everyone deals with their own personal challenges dealing with anything like that. But if you can catch it early, later in life, maybe you'll have not a better life, but to your point, you'll be able to hit those sort of benchmarks in life,
adapt.
maybe a little bit adapt and make it a little bit easier and be a chameleon compared to, oh my goodness, I just got hit with one brick, now I'm hit with two because it's this situation. I don't know what people are going to think about me. I don't know what to do in this situation. At the beginning, we didn't know anyone else that had RP or families that had someone that was a son or a daughter that was diagnosed, which I think didn't help. So that's another factor. Where do I do? What are the resources? All of those things that factor into it. So I think there's good and bads to both sides. But back to your point, being diagnosed at a younger age was able to make it a little, not better, but it made it easier going for where I am now.
Yeah, I imagine it does have some advantages. And Griffin, I have to tell you that there are so many similarities between us. Reading your background, I'm like, wow, even just your story you shared with playing baseball.
Yes.
So I was born with a congenital defect called retinoschisis. Congenital retinoschisis, completely different from RP, but basically it results in bad vision.
Okay.
You have very, very poor central vision when you had vision for RP. That's pretty common, correct?
Yes.
For me, my vision overall is just acuity is very, very bad. So I would be in Little League, center field, I'd hear, crack!
Oh, no.
And next thing you know, they're like, it's coming your way, Marcus! I'm like looking in the air, you're right, no, you're on the right! And next thing you know, I'd hear, it hit the ground, and I'd, no, run back, run. It was just brutal. Yeah. It was brutal, man.
Yeah, I feel your pain, Mark.
Oh, I know you can, my brother, man. It was just tough. But you know what? There was one shining moment. I told the story here before, but basically there was one day I kind of like saved the game. So there's like a silver lining in everything. And,
definitely.
My parents didn't prevent me from doing something that they thought could possibly end up being embarrassing for myself. But I think it builds character. It's not one of these situations where we have bulldozer and or helicopter parents nowadays who just want to pave it and make it nice and smooth and carefree and safe for their children.
And to your point with that, Mark, kind of from my own experiences, but then also the work that I do and we do as in the group that we support in the organization itself, that's tough as well, trying to get to, of course, the individual, because of course at the end of the day it's their choice and they're their own advocate when it comes to going to their PE class or trying to get adaptive sports back in their local community. But it's the parents too, because anyone can get hurt, anyone can get injured. It's part of life, and it's part of being an active individual. So giving them that experience just makes them more of a well-rounded person as a whole. So I definitely agree with your last statement. It's nothing's gonna tragically happen. Hopefully, but nothing will, and it builds character and it builds a lot of other things that you can use in any other part of your life.
You may get a few bumps and bruises, and that could be ego-wise as well, but I think it really just helps an individual, whether it's a youth or an adult in the long run, to have the ability to make mistakes and just carve your own passage and way in life on any regard, whether you have a disability or not. I say that we all have disabilities in life, whether they're real or perceived. It's kind of what you do with them that defines us.
Yes, I agree 100% with that
statement.
So
starting your organization, Foreseeable Future Foundation, was that something that maybe was a precursor when you were in college, when you realized that there was a need to educate people about vision loss?
Definitely, and I can reflect on that now, seeing what I did at university and sort of the events and awareness that we had on campus really put me on the path I'm on now with Foreseeable Future. When I got to university, I still had some vision, so I played rugby, which wasn't smart, for a year. I didn't use a cane.
See, to my point about getting bruised and battered.
yeah,
Let's put the guy with RP and play rugby.
And they asked what's your vision like? And I didn't, I tried to explain it, and they're like, well, okay.
Can you play? Can you see the ball?
Yeah, I'm like, kind of in these situations. So You know, from that and people asking, what can and can't you see? Because there was nothing that out there where, okay, he has a cane, or we definitely can tell he has some, you know, trouble seeing. It gave me the opportunity to say, why don't we educate young people and in this community on what visual impairment and blindness is, that there's not just black and white, that there are things in between. And if someone, you know, bumps into you or if something happens, you don't have to be, you know, that rude. You can, you know, if they want to talk about it, great. If not, but just to give that more human level of feeling that, you know, you'll have understanding, yeah, and the awareness. And, you know, at the most simple level, we're all just humans. And you know, if someone has a disability or not, and you want to ask them a question, then go ahead. If they don't want to answer it, they'll tell you. But those sorts of interactions on campus got me thinking we really need to bring some awareness and educate this group. So through a club that I was a part of at Susquehanna University, where I graduated from, it was called NACTIS, Club Through the Business School. We started programs my sophomore year. We started with a walk, which we raised $800, and then junior year we grew it bigger to having 4 or 5 different events. You had to play water pong, do sports simulating different visual impairments. We did a dining in the dark. Yeah,
I'm sure it was water pong, Griffin.
Of course.
So let me interrupt here for a second, Griffin.
Ahead,
I mean, it's a rite of passage to graduate high school, and whether it's a trade school, profession, or college,
yes,
to flourish.
Yes.
The next step in life, and to reinvent yourself, and to just embrace education and freedom and a whole new world. That's the exciting part.
Yes.
The daunting part for yourself, I imagine, because it was for me, is navigating a whole new world, a campus,
yes,
going up to professors every semester. In the beginning, I was like, okay, I got to get good at this. And then by mid-second or third or my 10th year in college, I'm just kidding about that, I would be just really burnt out by going up to professors and saying, hi, I look forward to, you know, continuing your class. My name is Mark Farrell. I'm visually impaired. I may need extra time taking a test or a larger print test. And some professors, I have to say it's happened probably 6 or 8 times, said, you don't look blind.
Yes, and it's
Did
funny,
that happen
Mark.
to you, Griffin?
Oh, definitely. And it's funny. I got into like a robotic rhythm of once I figured out, okay, this is what I need to do. Don't shy away from it. You need these things, and if the professor doesn't understand or get it, you have to be your own advocate and make sure that they do. But it's funny, Mark, because I would have those things happen, and I just get so robotic saying, yes, I need this. Yes, I need this. Okay, you say that I don't look blind, or you know, you don't really get that I do need extra time or I need a scribe in class. You know, okay, I'll go to the Academic Achievement Center and talk to someone and take it from there. So,
or the chair of your department. Your superior,
yes.
Dr. So-and-so.
Yes, exactly. So, and it comes back to the point where, you know, you have those things and you have to adapt and you have to be patient, but also never stop and be your own advocate because also, you need the tools to be successful.
Yes, and that fuels exactly what you did, the foundation of that club, to not only educate students, but there's a need for faculty,
yes,
professors to have sensitivity. And of course, you know, you're younger than I am, but I don't think you need to be of a certain age to understand feelings.
No, and we had everyone, you know, professors, people just living in the community, come to these events and have such a good time and get a better understanding
with that water pong, Griffin?
With the water pong, with the hockey shot, with dining in the dark, you know, all those things that we're not just throwing information at them. I mean, we are here and there, and it's not this, you know, terrible, you know, or event where it's this terrible, you know, disease, which it is, and visual impairment and blindness is a serious topic, but we were able to kind of make it more fun, interactive, and also give that education and awareness component. It brought my experience there to just new levels, and everyone really knew kind of not just who I was, but let me ask Griffin about, you know, RP or this, because I actually found out I have a friend or a family member that might suffer from that. So it really stemmed my experience and just the awareness component for everyone, not just the students, but the whole community, which was great.
And that must have been rewarding because here you are. And I have to say, before I go there,
sure,
hats off to you for being so emboldened at an age when, there are so many things to do and challenges to, just the mere pressure of being in college alone.
Yes.
With a disability, the time commitment and reading, the abundance and endless amount of reading and the pressure.
Yes.
It gets to you. But to actually just take all that and make it even larger for yourself to experience, but for other people to learn from. And I say that I think a lot of people, when they're insensitive, some people are just lack of educated.
Of course.
And then there's some people who are ignorant.
Yes.
But you took that platform, created a platform rather, to give them an opportunity to understand what it's like to have a disability of X, Y, and Z.
Yes, exactly, Mark. Which, that's some of what I want to do. That's kind of what...
And you're doing it now.
I'm doing it now, and it was able to put me on that path. And, when people said it wouldn't work or don't do it, or, you don't know, it takes a lot to start. Maybe it's just me being stubborn, but I said, no, we're going to do it, and we're going to help people. So we were able to make it happen.
Griffin Pinkow is my guest, spelled Pinkow. He's the founder of Foreseeable Future Foundation. Let's flash forward, Griffin, to a gym in New York City.
Yes.
That you used to frequent, and then that's kind of how the Foreseeable Future was crystallized.
Mm-hmm. So actually, there were a few instances at certain gyms where I met people, and things have just blossomed from there with the organization. Kind of with the interactions of people willing to come up and just chat and say, I see that you have a visual impairment, you're doing burpees, you're doing push-ups, you're really, doing a great job in here, and I'm over here on my phone looking at the news. Can we work out together? Can we do something together? And those interactions kind of stemmed into the idea of, well, what can we do for that community of visually impaired and blind people that want to get active or get moving, that are sedentary, or people that maybe just want to, do it not just as a recreational sport, but take it to the next level. As
a profession.
Yes, as a profession and as a career, and excel. So it was kind of funny, Mark, to have interactions where I was on a treadmill and I couldn't get it started, and one of my friends now, best friends, and he's a part of the organization, came up to me and said, do you need help starting it? Because I was training for a marathon. I was cursing at myself to start it because it wouldn't start, and I wanted to do my training.
It's not easy. Unless you see the words quick start, you need an advanced degree to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you don't remember where the buttons are. And he just came over and I said, sure. And then months later, that the interaction of that person coming up to me. And then I had one other occasion in the gym where I was working out and someone asked if I needed help. I said yes, and I interacted with them. And then later on they said, Griffin, I really wanted to ask you a couple questions or ask you about what you do, because I was wearing a Chicago Marathon jacket, and they see me do pull-ups, and then I get my cane and go to the next activity. And they were so curious, and just, not that they were ignorant, they just wanted to know. And me going to them and saying, hey, do you want to grab a coffee and let's chat next week, really was able to bridge that gap, and they were able to start that conversation. So instances like that really showed me that I needed to start it, and they've kind of, those connections and people have stemmed the organization to grow and help more.
Do you think athleticism has served as a great conduit, an outlet for you as a person with a disability, or not?
I was going to go a different avenue, but you know that answer.
Our listeners don't.
They don't. So it's if I don't work out for more than 2 days, I start to go stir crazy.
Become a beast. Beast Pinkow.
No, it's more of my medicine, I think. And
absolutely,
it could be like that.
It's my church.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, everyone has their different
temples in life.
Or temples. But
it used to be the bar. Now it's my church.
So it definitely has helped, keeps me on the straight and narrow. It gives me the outlet to be healthy, because, like most people with visual impairment or disabilities are sedentary. So having that component, and then also just being able to clear my head and use it as a way to not, come to grips, not whatever you want to call it, but it's just another way to kind of deal with the days where it could get a little, not as easy or a little frustrating, you use that. And I really think that's helped me in a lot of areas of my life, dealing with, being on time for a workout, making sure that I have accountability of doing my hardest in that workout, and then just also having it as a relaxing feeling. As you probably know, Mark, when I'm running and doing my training runs, I just black everything out. I just in such a different zone where I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to do. I'm just thinking about moving forward and with this training run. Of course, I'm listening to my guides because that wouldn't be safe if I block out what they're saying. But in a way, it's very peaceful. So yes, it's definitely helped in those ways of my life.
And you experience that peace and solitude, not even alone, which is nice. I mean, you have guides helping you navigate wherever you are, Central Park, wherever the case may be.
Yes.
But the reality is you have solace because you're doing what you want to do. And there's going to be so many of our listeners going, my God, how could he run a marathon? How can you do X, Y, or Z? Or when I did my first triathlon, I realized I couldn't see the swim course moments before the race was executed, before it started.
Wow.
But you know what? I mean, there's so many things in life. I think the reality is fear is a major driving component. Yes, it's scary not to be able to see where you're swimming. Yes, it's scary to be able to not be able to see where you're running in Central Park and hearing cars ride by you at a fast clip like 4 or 5, 10 feet away, and entrusting a guide. But what's the other option? Sitting on the sidelines. It's not for you. It's not for me. It's not for a lot of people. And I think creating an organization such as the Foreseeable Future Foundation is an invaluable tool because kids want to be kids. Sports are a rite of passage. As a matter of fact, it's more paramount than ever in this digital age for youth to be able to partake in something that's going to get them their minds and faces out of a screen and into something that can really cultivate and pay off for them for the rest of their lives.
Yes, I agree, Mark. And through the organization, we sponsor a lot of individuals, kids, and to go to camps. They have week-long camps that are geared for the visually impaired and blind. They're all adaptive sports to give them an outlet to be active in their peers, but also to show them that you can do this. You can play beep baseball, or you can go do a triathlon, and then take that back to their community, their home, and stay at it. But being able to support those camps and those groups through the organization, not just with supporting them with funds, but actually going there and seeing the people that we're helping and meeting a few of them, and
absolutely
being able to help a couple of the kids do a duathlon. Funny enough, quickly at one of the camps, there was a boy that wanted to run a duathlon. At the end of the week, they do a duathlon for the kids, and no one could keep up with him. And they asked Griffin, can you run with him? Can you guide him? And I'm thinking, do you understand that I'm going to need a guide to guide him? And
a guide for the guide. I love it.
A guide for the guide. They said, sure. So I said, okay, have them over my right shoulder. I'll have the young gentleman to my left staggered off on the left, and we'll make it work. And Henry got his goal, and we were able to do it. So seeing, maybe not being able to see, but hear his excitement and just ecstatic that he was able to finish it and do it and hit the time he wanted.
Well, that's phenomenal, Griffin, on many levels, because number one, as someone who's out there as a leader, as a coach, as a model for this individual, it's not going by vision or sight. You're modeling because he can hear your breath, he can hear your physicality, he can feel your presence, and that speaks volumes over the platform and the foundation that you created, which we're almost running out of time. Of Griffin, course. I want to make sure I find out exactly from you, what was the exact time, if there's one moment where you said, you know what, I need to create something for children with visual impairment and or blindness?
I would say probably after college. I graduated, and it took a few months. I was trying to figure out what I want to do and kind of, with the next step. I didn't want a normal job. I knew I wanted to help people. And going to a few conferences and talking to some parents and some kids that weren't as high as, I guess I am, or other friends that I have, or yourself, Mark, on being a really, active individual dealing with a visual impairment or blindness, and saying we need to create something. There's not enough going on, and even if there is, and there's more and more that's going on every day, but we need to figure out how we can help. And I need to do this. I need to help the kids and the young teens excel if they want to, or just be active, because I remember being in their shoes and in PE class not being able to interact or play those sports. So I think that was the aha moment, and doing more and more through the organization and just meeting more people that have certain programs that we support. I wish those things were around 10 years ago. I'm only 26. I wish those things were around 10 years ago, because I would have done all of them. We didn't have all these adaptive sports, and there wasn't all of this going on in the field of adaptability for visual impairment and blindness and all these things. So I think that was the aha moment of, yes, I need to do this. I'm going to take the leap and give it a year and see if it works. And good things that come from a good place work, and it has. So I'm really proud that I'm able to help the community that I'm a part of.
And how did you get into cycling, road cycling?
Oh my goodness, cycling. So I had run marathons. My friend, who is a Paralympic triathlete, said, "Here's some camps that you can go attend, possibly attend." I said, okay, well, I might want to go do the powerlifting one or something just really out there. And she said, no, Griffin, do tandem cycling. I had never ridden a bike. I got on one when I was too young, took off the training wheels, fell off the bike, and said I would never get on the bike again. 16.
Really? Even before your vision loss?
Yes. Even before the vision loss. You
hung up the helmet, huh?
I did. And then I got 16 years old. I got back on the bike. I said, okay, I can do it. I can ride. I'm good. I'm done. And then at 22... I took the plunge of what's tandem cycling. I didn't know what tandem cycling was, or how that would work. So I said, sure. I applied. I got accepted, and then the thought was, oh crap, I got accepted. Now I have to go and do it. So I did the camp. I tried tandem cycling. I got hooked, and I love it. And now I compete at a national level for the past 2 years in tandem cycling.
Fantastic for you, Griffin.
It's that's my new addiction. Which
what an adrenaline rush, the freedom, the air, the notion that you're just in control but not in control.
Yes.
Everything.
The team as well. It's a big team component, which people don't, on a single bike, you don't really get, or people don't realize. On a tandem, if your pilot does something that you don't know what's going on, or
so the pilot, for our listeners, is the lead cyclist on the tandem bike in front, and you're the stoker.
Stoker, yes, correct, on the back. So if you don't have that synergy, it can really go bad fast. I mean, as simple as the pilot stopping and putting up the wrong foot, and you put up the opposite foot, and you fall over immediately. So the most simple things you wouldn't think of can make it go wrong at a team effort. And when you're on a track going 40 miles an hour and you don't have any brakes because it's a fixed gear on that tandem bike, if something happens and you don't communicate correctly, it's not going to end well.
The only plus side is there are no New York City taxis buzzing by you. But you are going 40 miles an hour on a banked track. That's just phenomenal, and I think that's very representative of the life you've led and continue to lead.
Well,
and
you,
for all the programs, we didn't get to get into those, Griffin, but I do just want to mention a few different names. James Gilliard, Wendy Warechester, and Declan Ryan, all three recipients, and there's plenty more. These are just three I picked out of a hat for recipients for Foreseeable Future Foundation. They were able to attain the possibility and/or a camp or going to the Paralympics to have their opportunity at their passion, sport, despite being visually impaired or blind.
Yes.
That's all? Just yes?
Well, Mark, I mean, it's incredible because I say yes because I'm so happy that we were able to help them, and we're just a little part of their journey. And there are so many other programs, and I mean, we had over 300 applications this year.
Wow.
And we were able to grant half of those to.
And how are you getting the word out, Griffin?
The word is pretty organic. We have a newsletter, our social media handles, the website, and just making connections and people hearing the story or hearing, from the people that we supported. we were able to do what we could from Foreseeable Future. So, this is what they do, and you can check them out there. So it's pretty organic, but it's worked really well. So knowing some of those people that you mentioned, being friends that, our organization decided to help and support is just great. And sometimes I actually get to compete against them or just get to train with them, and not just helping them and supporting their journey,
Fantastic.
but being,
The fruition of your dream.
a part of it. Being a part of it in that component as well. So
ForeseeableFutureFoundation.org?
Yes, .org, Foreseeable Future on Facebook, Foreseeable Future Instagram. So we're all over there if they want to hear where we're up to, who we're supporting, and what's going on.
And you just had your annual gala?
We did. We have our annual gala every year. We're still working on the planning for that, and we're trying to also do in the next year a roundtable discussion to bring some of these athletes in and share their stories and have some more educational awareness.
Do you have a spokesperson for?
No, we're working on that.
There you go. A lot of great things happening at Foreseeable Future Foundation. Griffin Penkow, an honor to meet you. Thank you for cutting through a lot of what takes families, years and sometimes a lifetime to get to the end result in terms of opportunity, and that's invaluable.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me. It was just great to meet you in person and giving me the opportunity to share not just my story, but the story of the people that we get to help and what we're doing as an organization.
You bet, my friend. ForeseeableFutureFoundation.org. Mark Farrell, have a great day. Enjoy. Gary Knowles next.